A brand new Lubbock restaurant was shut down shortly after it opened for more than 70 violations. KCBD News Channel 11's Christy Harden joins us with tonight's Food for Thought. Christy?
A long-awaited all-you-can-eat sushi restaurant is back open after health inspectors forced it to temporarily shut down following its very first health inspection. Let's take a look. Umiya Sushi at 4180 South Loop 289 had 71 violations. They were shut down by the health department for 24 hours, forced to implement a corrective action plan after failing their health inspection. They have since passed re-inspection and have been allowed to reopen. Here's a look at their priority violations. Raw salmon, sliced avocado, and cream cheese were above the safe cold temperature of 41 degrees. Rice was not hot enough. Ready-to-eat shrimp and eel did not have a date mark. Ready-to-eat calamari and rangoons were stored uncovered in a freezer with an accumulation of frozen condensate on them. The person in charge was unable to provide source information for individually wrapped pre-cooked eggs. There were no records available for how the sushi rice was made and monitored. There were no pH meters available for acidified sushi rice. Multiple items were stored in a way that could have caused cross-contamination. A can opener was dirty. Food residue was on clean utensils. An employee wiped off used knives with a towel and put them back with clean items. A can was dented. This can cause botulism. First aid supplies were stored above a prep table. Toxic items were not labeled or stored properly. There were no sanitizing test strips available. There was no soap or paper towels at a hand sink. Rubber mats were on a hand sink. A drain line was discharging into a hand sink. Lids, straws, and an unlidded drink were stored in a hand sink. Hand sinks are for hand washing only to prevent cross-contamination. An employee did not use a barrier like a paper towel to turn off a faucet at a hand sink. A hand sink was blocked. Drain lines were not installed properly. The person in charge was unable to correctly respond to the inspector's questions regarding sanitizing procedures. The inspector notes, due to the number and the nature of the violations, management did not show proper food safety knowledge. Again, the facility was closed for 24 hours following their inspection and has since reopened. They had to provide and implement a corrective action plan to ensure critical priority violations are not repeated. Once that was done, they were allowed to reopen. Taqueria y Dulceria Guadalajara at 1925 19th had 16 violations. Here's a look at their priority violations. A pot of beef stew was not cooling properly. This can cause bacteria to grow. A pot of menudo did not have a date mark. Asado was held past its use-by date. A reach-in cooler was not working properly. The ambient temperature was 47 degrees. It must be able to keep items 41 degrees or below. Queso was not hot enough. It must be at least 135 degrees. The three-compartment sink was not sanitizing, and the sanitizer being used was not strong enough. There were no chlorine test strips available. There was no soap at least 2 hand sinks. Another hand sink did not have paper towels. The can opener blade had an accumulation of old food residue. And the inspector notes, due to the number and the nature of the violations, active managerial control was not observed. The report shows most of the violations were corrected at the time of the inspection. Now to the good news. Here's a look at this week's top performers. Frio's Gourmet Pops, Mi Cocina, Taqueria Atlan, and Whataburger at 114th and Quaker. You can check out the full list of violations in the Food for Thought section of KCBD.com. Back to you.